she's got one foot and daddy ain't got none. Two folks got but 5 toes, they can't walk near mine run. Rock and roll and hopping round the place, get to drinking and they wheelchair race. 5 toes clean up, no more, no less. 5 little bees, they're missing all the rest.
Welcome back to Amputee Wisdom. We have Travis Pollen with us once again. Do you get a lot of questions, like people?
More
kids,
stares, probably. Yeah,
more stares.
Kids will
questions.
ask. Kids will ask. And so a few years ago, we actually got a dog who's missing her front leg. So people really get confused when they see me walking the dog, and they're like, "Wait, your dog's missing a leg? Wait, you're missing a leg?" But they usually ask more about the dog than they ask about me. Oh, how'd your dog lose the leg?
Oh, that's nice.
So it takes the onus off me. But yeah, we're a good team. She doesn't like to walk really far, so we got along well that way because neither do I.
How old is your dog?
She's 7 or so. We adopted her 3 years ago. We don't know too much about her, but that as far as we know, she's about 7.
One thing I wanted to go back and touch on was you had talked about how you tried the different sports, and then you went into adaptive sports.
Yeah.
And even when you were talking about finding like the different prostheses that work best for you,
Yeah.
how did you go about doing so? How did you know where to look, where to start? How did your parents know where to start?
It was really just trusting the prosthetist to say, this is the best thing for your son, or they talk to me, this is the best thing for you, this is what people with your level of activity use. But yeah, there are other things out there, microprocessor knees, powered ankle feet that I haven't tried, and then the running stuff that I haven't tried either. So who knows if I'm using the best thing for me, but I'm using the thing that I'm used to and that works, and it lets me do most of the stuff that I want to do. But there are feet that rotate in the frontal plane too, so they would be good for tennis and cutting exercises, or even feet that have a little bit of ankle motion. Like mine doesn't hardly have any ankle motion at all, so it makes exercises for me squatting in the gym tough, even everyday squatting, just because I have no ankle motion. So it would be nice maybe to try something out that allows me to do that better. But again, it's well, I'm used to this, it seems to be working and relatively pain-free, so.
But
yeah.
You could get a higher prosthesis, a higher K-level prosthetic?
Yeah, so it's weird.
We speak
because
on K-level terms.
So I think I'm classified as a K4, so there's 5 levels, right? And I always assumed that I was a 5, but I think 5s are only if you're doing runnings, really high level stuff like that. And so when I found out that I was a 4, I was like, that sucks. I feel like I'm really active. I should be the highest level, but
So the highest level is more like the blades and what the Paralympians are using?
Yeah, as far as I understand it. Not that it matters on an everyday
because you're not going to use
basis.
it anyways.
Yeah, I don't like running, but maybe it's just because I've never had the right thing for running.
So would you say you're open to...
I'm open, and I 5 years ago when I got my current prosthesis, we talked about you can get this, but we can make it so you can just screw off the bottom and screw on one of those cheetah feet or whatever. And my prosthetist at the time was a triathlete himself, so he told me he had a hookup that we could trial one of the feet, but it ended up not happening, and I didn't push the envelope because I have enough ways to be physically active without needing to run.
Yeah.
But it is on my bucket list. Yeah, it would be cool to try at least once.
Nice. So your current prosthesis you're using is just a simple knee joint?
Yeah, so it's called a total knee. It's by Oser, and it it doesn't give me any it's not powered, so all of the motion is coming from me, which from what I understand, people who are less active are the ones who use the powered devices because they assist them. But for me, I really like it because it's lightweight. My whole prosthesis only weighs about 7 pounds, which is just way less than a regular leg would weigh, a human leg. So I'm able to do a bunch of pull-ups and all sorts of cool calisthenics exercises because I'm so light that I wouldn't necessarily be able to do if I had 2 full weight legs. Yeah. So it's kind of a blessing in that way that if I got something maybe more sophisticated, it might be a little bit heavier, and especially when if the foot were heavier, the weight is so like far from where my hip muscles are, and the hip muscles are already kind of weak, that it just like magnifies. It would feel like I was lugging a lot of extra weight around if it were heavier.
Yeah. I mean, I've seen videos of you like working out, you're rock climbing, you're like deadlifting.
Yeah,
like,
you do cool stuff.
Yeah,
so.
doing really cool stuff, and you
Yeah.
have, I guess, one of the simplest prosthesis.
Yeah, I mean,
that's out
probably
there.
probably not the simplest.
Okay.
Like, but yeah, it's basically like, here's what insurance is going to cover 50% of, and if you wanted anything more, it would come out of pocket. So I use it and it works.
Yeah. But you're an advocate for try whatever works for you. Try all the high tech prosthesis.
If I
and
were
just see if it
advocating
works
to
for you.
somebody else, I would definitely say try more stuff. But it's like, well, once you find something that works well for you, why change it if it's not perfect?
So
I did try. There was one time I was probably like 14 years old, and I tried something else, and it really didn't like it at all. And so maybe it's like subconsciously that's in my head, like, oh, everything else sucks because I tried one other thing one time and it didn't work.
Yeah.
But that's obvious. Like n equals 1, and there's, like I said, there's so many out there, and every company has their own version, and it makes it like paralysis by analysis, because it's like, well, I don't know what I want to try. Everything looks cool.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'll just stick with what I have.
Stick with what you have. Exactly. If it works for you, it works for you. Yeah. No need to spend unnecessary money for more things that you might not need.
Yeah, that's how I see it.
So wanted to also touch on kind of, since you've been living with limb loss all your life.
Yeah.
I'm assuming you've been you've been a big part of like the amputee community.
Yeah.
How have you been able to like find like other young people who have amputations? I'm
I
sure
have a
there's
good
not a
story
lot
about
of people
this.
like
Yeah,
that.
I have a good story about this. So, growing up, like, and even to this point, like, yes, I'm an amputee, and like talking to other amputees is great. Like I said, when I got into adaptive cycling and adaptive rowing, like, it was really cool to meet some other amputees, but also just people with different disabilities. Like my rowing partner for a few years was blind, and he was in his 60s, but he was so fit, like way fitter than I like ever was, even though I was like a Paralympic time trialist. But just like unbelievable. Guy took like 20 vitamins a day. But anyway, so like meeting those people was amazing, and like being able to interact with them, being able to do sports with them. But at the same time, like, I never just saw myself as like an adaptive athlete. I just saw myself as an athlete. And so like being able to swim in high school with able-bodied people and swim in college with able-bodied people, it just like, it made me feel like I wasn't different, which is really what I was looking for, I guess. But yeah, like with the advent of social media, it's way easier to connect with people. And that, like, I've definitely met, like, I have a friend in Europe who is also a personal trainer and an amputee, and like seeing the stuff that he does is amazing, and being able to talk to him about it. But recently I was, I think I was like updating my resume, and I wanted to check to see, so in 2011 and 12, or maybe 10 and 11, I set 2 Paralympic records in swimming. And so,
Very
thank
cool.
you. So every, year or so, I would like check to see if I still had the records. And 2 years ago, I was updating my CV, and I wanted to see if I still had the records, because I would either say like Olympic record holder, Paralympic record holder, or former Paralympic record holder. And lo and behold, I see that this kid had broken one of my records, not both of them, just one of them, like very recently. And so I looked him up, and he's a student at Tufts. He's a college swimmer, same birth defect as me, same side, similar build to me too, like not like a huge guy. And so I reached out to him and congratulated him, and he's like, oh, I thought I recognized your name when I like told him who I was. And he's like, I'm coming for your other record next year. I'm like, oh snap. And he actually, so he broke the one that he broke the previous year again this year, but I still have the one. He's more of like a longer distance swimmer, and I was a sprinter. He'll probably get my other one. But anyway, the point of this was that when I was talking to him about it, it was amazing to just learn a little bit about him, because like, one, he was an engineer, I was a physics major, same birth defect, just like a similar story to mine. And it was amazing. And like similar, like he goes to a similar school as I went to. And so like hearing about him was like, wow, it's so cool to connect with you. But I didn't feel like that feeling was reciprocated, not because he wasn't like happy to talk to me and stuff, but so he's 10 years younger than me, about. And so he came up, as he was growing up, social media was even more readily available. Challenged Athletes Foundation, Paralympics, all that stuff. He just knows a lot. It seems like he knows a lot of other amputees and people with PFFD, whereas I only know a few. And so it was just weird and interesting, like just that 10-year age gap. Like now it's so much easier to connect with people all over the world who have limb loss, that like him talking to me was like old news, because he already knows and is already connected with so many other people with similar situations. But I can count on like one hand how many people I know with PFFD. Like there was a guy when I was swimming, he was a few years older than me. His name was Travis, actually, Travis Moore, and he had PFFD, as far as I understand it, in both sides. So he never had any amputations or wore prosthesis. He was just yay high. And so I think I emailed back and forth with him a little bit. He was a swimmer. And then like one time when I was in Portland, like a woman on the street came up to me and she's like, "Do you have PFFD?" And I was like, "Yeah." She's like, "So do I." And I think we exchanged business cards, but nothing ever came of it. And then like there's another woman, and I'm blanking on her name, but she has a memoir. She wrote a book about growing up with PFFD. And I read it and like reached out to her, and we recently got in touch and like shared some Facebook messages. So yeah, it's cool, and like definitely the world is at your fingertips when it comes to being able to talk to people, and now even more so than it was when I was in my teens.
That's very, very interesting. Yeah, you could see like just in a few decades.
Yeah, I was
like 20 years.
I was like, why isn't this kid like so as excited as I am that we found each other? And I was like, oh, he already knows a bunch of us.
Yeah, he's already connected.
It's no big deal to him. Yeah, and he's just been, he's been to the Challenged Athletes events, on the Paralympic circuit for swimming, and he's seen a lot of other like people with disabilities. So I'm old news.
You're new news to me.
Appreciate it.
So, in regards to like the resources that are out there for like just younger people who are living with limb loss or who are living with PFSD, what resources would you like recommend for other people to check out?
So Challenged Athletes Foundation is the best. From like 2010 to 2012, they funded me every year for swimming. So I was able to get a grant to either like pay for training, pay for travel to national competitions. And then after my swimming career was over, they continued to fund me for a hand cycle, which is amazing to have my own. Because I would go and I would borrow one from this center called Philadelphia Center for Adapted Sports, PCAS. But it's nice to have your own, and you don't need to rely on them when they're open to borrow. And then they also funded me for strength training equipment when I was competing in adapted CrossFit competitions. So they've just been really good to me over the years. And it's an application process, but you basically like say, "Hey, hi, I'm Travis. I have limb difference. Note from the doctor. Here's what I want some money for to do sports," and like they've been pretty good about it. So that would be like the number one for me. But also like Pennsylvania Center for Adapted Sports, PCAS, if you live in the Philadelphia area. PCAS is an amazing resource for. They have like rock climbing, they have swimming, they have cycling and crew, rowing, they have skiing, which like I've been sort of wanting to get into over the last little while. I did it when I was 6. I went with the hospital Shriners that I was at on a skiing trip, and that was another one of those things where like I remember being like really legit like a natural skier, and then I found like a VHS of they had recorded the trip, and I watched it and saw myself, and I'm like, I wasn't that good, but in my mind's eye, like I was flying down the slopes. But my balance is pretty good. I'm pretty strong, so it's something that I have thought about getting into, but haven't gotten around to it. But like those opportunities are definitely there, and PCAS is just an amazing like group of volunteers who like help you do whatever sports you want to do.
So you basically recommend just getting active or being part of
Yeah,
an active
well, you know
community.
what's
You don't
funny?
have to be like a top-rank athlete.
No,
right?
not at all. You can do it all for fun, and like nobody's pushing you like, oh, you gotta make it to the top. It's like it's totally dependent on what you want. But I remember when I was 13 years old, I was really reluctant actually to try hand cycling, and I have no idea why. And my mom eventually was like, just do it. And I did it, and it was so fun. And I went every week to the art museum and did the loop around the art museum, like 8.5 miles on a hand cycle.
Wow.
Good upper body workout.
Yeah.
And for some reason, as a teenager, I was just like, oh, I don't know about that. And you don't know until you try it. So just try it.
Yeah.
And who knows, you might like it. Or you might not like it. So like crew, I did for a while, but it ended up like, because I was pushing with just one leg, it ended up hurting my back. I don't know how amputees do that without hurting their back, but I just ultimately decided that wasn't a good sport for me. But I was able to try a lot and find the ones that work.
And so I want to touch base on a few other things that you're currently doing, even right now. So you're in the PhD program
Yeah,
at
so I'm
Drexel
working on my
University.
PhD, and I'm actually researching risk factors for injury in swimmers.
Nice.
So yeah, when my undergraduate major was physics, and when I finished undergrad, I decided that I didn't want to pursue physics, so I enrolled in a 6-month personal trainer diploma program. And so after I got my diploma in personal training, I worked as a personal trainer for about 6 months, and then I found out about a biomechanics program at University of Delaware. And so biomechanics, I didn't really have any conception of what the field was. I had heard of kinesiology and physiology, but I'm a noob at biology, so I knew that physiology was too far down that rabbit hole. But biomechanics ended up being this amazing intersection of physics with athletics and sports. And so I ended up doing my master's at University of Delaware in biomechanics. And then after that, I went back and worked for another year as a sports performance coach for young athletes until finding this program where I'm at now at Drexel University. And the degree program is called Rehabilitation Sciences, but the research is a lot of biomechanics applications. And yeah, so I'm looking at risk factors for injury in swimmers, looking at how swimmers move on land and in the pool, how previous injuries and how the amount of training that they're all doing sort of interact to wind up with injuries. So that's sort of I guess it's again, with the way biomechanics was this intersection of my interests at the time, risk factors for injury, movement, swimming, it's all sort of come together to be a really cool intersection of things, to the point where when I'm doing the research, it doesn't really feel like work. It just feels like, oh, this is the stuff that I'd be interested in reading about anyway. And that's a rare thing to have. And if you're going to be investing 3, 4, 5, 6 years of your life into a PhD, it better be something that you're really passionate about. And I've been lucky to find that. And still on the side be able to do some personal training.
And write a book. Yeah,
so the year that I took off in between my master's and my PhD, I was interning and working at a sports performance gym where the director there, he is now an NHL strength coach, but he was really well known in the hockey community. And he had a book that he had written in 2011, which he handed to me on the first day of my internship. And I looked at it and I'm like, we can do better than this. So during the time that I was there, and over the last few years, since I went on to do my doctorate and he's gone on to work in the NHL, we've been writing this book, and it finally is coming out in a couple of days. So pretty cool to have my name on the cover of a book. We self-published it, but yeah, it's cool to be able to say I'm an author and have that notch in my belt.
What's the name of the book?
It's called Speed Training for Hockey.
Speed Training for Hockey.
Yeah.
And it's available right now, or
if you go to speedtrainingforhockey.com, you can buy it.
And is it a biomechanics book, or do you have to have a PhD
no,
to
well,
understand?
So that's a really good question. So what we wanted to do with it was make it really user friendly. So any young athlete, parent, hockey coach could pick it up with no background knowledge about like anatomy, physiology, biomechanics, and just be able to understand what we're talking about. And in addition to like 100 pages of text, there's about 50 pages worth of training programs for 3 different age groups. So basically we just wanted to give the end user, the hockey player or parent, everything that they needed to be able to do the same types of programs that this NHL strength coach would implement with his athletes, you know? But yeah, that was a big goal of writing it in really, not simplistic language, but simple language that anybody could understand. And like, I had my mom read it, of course, and she didn't really understand it, but also she knows nothing about hockey, so yeah.
How many years did it take you to write that book?
It basically took about, there were 6 weeks where I basically stopped working at the gym and just wrote the book. And then edits and all of the other stuff that goes into actually launching a product, from the web design to the like getting the word out there and having other people like try to market it for you, has been like the last few years. Artwork, cover design, all that stuff. So yeah, it's been 3 years that we've been working on it, but it was like in 2016 it was like a very concentrated time where I was writing it. But even before that, like during the months that I was interning at the gym, I was basically just like doing the background work, like reading to try to prepare myself to then, you know, write the parts of it that I was writing.
And just kind of round things up, really wanted to ask the question, what would you say is your biggest motivator for just doing what you do?
I think like I have this fear that I'm gonna be in a wheelchair by like the time I'm 40.
Oh my gosh.
So ultimately,
you're so fit.
I know, but ultimately it's like I just want to be able to like be active as I get older and be pain-free. And so like from a day-to-day basis, my like the things that I'm trying to do from an exercise standpoint are to keep me healthy, to keep my like affected side strong, to stay like take the dog on a walk, you know, just do the things now that like putting physical activity money in the bank so that later, like as normal aging things happen, I'm still able to do the things that I want to do. So that's really, I think, now what I'm focused on. Obviously, when I was training for Paralympics, I was very focused on being fit in that way, and now I'm just trying to be fit for life.
Oh wow, that's a really good mindset. Good, I should do that. Yeah. Work on. Who knows? Maybe the next 20 years, I'm just not going to be able to have as much endurance as I.
But also, before. Like as a personal trainer, I want to set a good example for my clients. Like, it wouldn't, you know, you don't have to be like a fitness model, but you should look the part. And I want to like keep trying things out in the gym. If I'm going to give something to a client, I at least want to know what it feels like. I don't want to just be some guy who sits on the couch and like then when it comes into the gym and tells people what to do without actually living it myself.
Yeah, that's true. How long have you been a personal trainer?
I got the diploma after I graduated college, so 2013. So 5-6 years now. Yeah.
And you're a personal trainer here in Philadelphia.
Yeah, so I do some like in-home training. I do some online training, which kind of sounds crazy, but basically like I write workout training programs for people who live anywhere. And so we basically like, we Skype, we email back and forth, but basically like I'll write the workouts and they'll do them on their own time. We're not like Skyping during the training sessions. Yeah. So you might also call it like remote training programming. And I have a few clients who I do that for. From athletes, one of them is like trying to make the Olympics in 2020 for swimming.
Oh, cool.
Another one is like a 70-year-old man who just also wants to be fit
just
for life.
Just as cool, yeah.
Yeah, and different sorts of like I recently had a woman who hasn't worked out for 2 years because she had shoulder and back issues. And that's like really perfect for where I am with my education in terms of the rehabilitation sciences, because I'm like, obviously I'm not a physical therapist, I'm not like a doctor, but I sort of understand like the taking somebody from a rehabilitation context to a like performance context, even if it's not sports performance, just like daily life performance. But both from my like education and from like my own lived experience as a person who has been through that sort of rehabilitative process, it just like, I'm a good person for that job.
Oh, nice. And how would how are others able to find you? Do you
My
have
website, yeah. So fitnesspollinator.com, or if they Googled my name,
Fitness Pollinator?
Yeah, it's goofy, like the Terminator,
Yeah.
but pollinator. But if you Googled my name, you could find my my blog, and then it has information on the coaching stuff.
So you're Googling Travis Pollen?
Yep.
Pollinated?
Yeah. When I started the blog in 2013, I was like, all right, I don't know what to call it. I guess I'll just call it Pollinator. And I didn't even like the name at the time, but it's stuck. But I think once I get my PhD, I might change it to TravisPollen.com. I purchased that domain.
Oh, nice.
A few months ago. All right, I'm gonna be an adult eventually at some point, so maybe one of them will redirect to the other, but you can find me either way.
Nice. Oh, awesome. Well, thank you very much for joining us, Travis. Really appreciate you sharing your story. It's very inspiring and amazing the things you've done.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us.
Appreciate it.
And thank you everyone for tuning in. I'm Amira Idris, and this is Amputee Wisdom.
Mama, she's got one foot and daddy ain't got none. Two folks got but 5 toes, they can't walk near mine run. Rock and roll and hopping round the place, get to drinking and they wheelchair race. 5 toes clean up, no more no legs.